Insta360 has just created what I think is not only the best 360 camera, but the best action camera that currently exists. Want to know why? We're talking about the Insta360 X4, and this thing is a beast. If you already own a 360 camera and you're wondering if you should upgrade, I'll speak to that in a bit. Okay, first, this thing shoots in 8K. They put 8Ks in there. That's a lot of Ks. So the main benefit is that when you're shooting in 360 mode and you crop into a usable size, for the first time you finally get 4K. You get a much higher resolution. Previous versions gave you a much lower resolutions once you finally cropped into a usable size. Or the other alternative was you could get 4K, but you could only shoot with one lens, which means no 360 4K until now. With 8K, this means you're no longer sacrificing resolution when you want to shoot in 360, and that is a major upgrade in my book. This thing also has solid dynamic range. Look at this shot taken with the X4 mounted just below my rearview mirror. You get a pretty good exposure both inside the car where it's a lot darker, as well as outside where the sun is just blazing down. This is really impressive for such a small camera that also shoots in every direction, which means it has to balance the exposure from two different lenses. Something to note is that if the camera detects there's too little light, it will actually recommend you switch to shoot in 5.7K to avoid having more noise when you're shooting in 8K in low light situations. Something else to keep in mind about shooting in 8K is that it puts more demand on your camera, which means it can get hotter and potentially overheat. Thankfully, they've provided this thermal grip cover which snaps right over top of the camera, and it helps to actually dissipate the heat, reducing the chance of it overheating. Recently, I was in Utah with 95-degree days, and while shooting for minutes at a time, which is how I usually shoot with this camera, I didn't have any problems with overheating while shooting in 8K. Okay, 3 beautiful words. Removable lens guards. We finally got them. Thank you, Insta360, for giving us these. I don't know if you've scratched a lens on a 360 camera like I did recently on my X3, but you can't repair it. I mean, thankfully it does have a second lens that you can shoot with, but that means no more 360, and that's a major bummer. Now even the base X4 comes with standard lens guards, which is awesome. You can also purchase separately these premium lens guards, which I believe are made out of high-strength tempered glass. I've not used those, so I can only speak to the standard ones, and I find they work great. These things make owning a 360 camera way less stressful. As long as you have them installed, you're far less likely to damage your lenses. When you install these guards, you do need to go into the settings of the camera and tell it that they're installed so it can adjust how the two lenses are stitched together. And as a side note, the way this camera stitches two lenses together still feels like magic to me, and I've been using these things for years now. It feels like some kind of black magic voodoo that someone must have sold their soul for this technology to even exist. There's a new Mega View that lets you see even more than Ultra View after cropping. I also personally like the de-warp mode, which lets you achieve footage that looks more typical and avoids the warping of straight lines, which you can get with such a wide field of view. The software used to edit 360 footage on both laptop and your phone is pretty straightforward and easy to use. I don't actually think these cameras would be as popular or desirable if it wasn't. We also now get to record in 200 megabits per second, which is upgraded from 120 on the X3. This basically means your footage is shot at a higher bit rate, which means you have more data to play with if you want to go back and manipulate or color grade your footage later. For color profiles, you can shoot in standard, vivid, or flat log style profile for color grading later. You can shoot in standard or active HDR video mode. You can shoot time lapses in 11K. You can take 72 megapixel 360 photos. The phone app comes with loads of templates to get really fun and creative shots. And the list goes on and on. There are more features with this camera than I could realistically fit in a single video. It's got a bigger 2.5-inch screen that just makes it that much easier to use. Battery life is now 135 minutes, which is a 67% upgrade from the X3. Keep in mind these are new batteries, so if you own an X3, the batteries are not interchangeable. You can do 60 FPS at 5.7K, 100 FPS in 4K, and you can now do 120 frames per second in Me mode, which basically lets the camera follow you wherever you are, so you don't have to do that later manually in the software. The X4 is a bit larger and heavier than the X3. That said, this hasn't bothered me at all, given how much this camera can do. And even in a third-party protective case, it still doesn't take up much room in my camera bag. I love shooting with this camera because it makes me think differently about the kind of shots I can get. And as a creative, any tool that can do that is really valuable. Something else I love is how easy it is to use. As long as the lens can see something you want in the shot, you can just set it up, hit record, and then you can get back to being present and in the moment, whether that's by yourself or doing something or you're with people. It literally helps you be more present because you don't have to worry about the composition. You can get to that later. So should you get an X4? First, if you don't already own one and it's in your budget, I highly recommend it. You can get so many incredible and unique and diverse shots that are pretty much impossible with almost any other camera. You can even use the extended selfie stick and fake drone shots, which is really handy given how many places don't allow drones. It is small enough you can put it in really unique places. With the selfie stick or the various mounting options, you can stick it just about anywhere, hit record, and then capture anything the camera can see. With just a single shot, you can even get multiple angles without shooting multiple times. You could get the dive case and take this thing swimming with you and still get perfectly stitched underwater 360 footage. If you're on a budget, the X3 is also a great option at $100 less than the X4, and you're still gonna get at least the majority of the things that the X4 can do. If you already own a 360 camera and you wanna know if you should upgrade, for me it came down to three main features, and that is the better resolution, the better dynamic range, and the extended battery life. Those things made it a no-brainer for me, which is why I upgraded. And if those things are important to you, then I would recommend you upgrade too. Basically, you get a lot of bang for your buck here. And I think we still have a lot to learn about how we can use these cameras in even more creative and interesting ways. And if you want to learn what some of these creative ways are, check out this video.